What is up, guys? Today I'm going to show you my top 5 core exercises to improve your planche, front lever, human flag, muscle up, V-sit, handstand, and any possible calisthenics skill that you can imagine. Without further ado, let's get to it. Alright guys, before we begin, I want to touch on 2 points. The first one is that for calisthenics skills, planche, front lever, muscle up, even those dynamic ones like the muscle up and the handstand push-ups, they do require core stabilization. Now your core is way bigger than we might think. It includes your obliques, it includes your low back, it includes your serratus, it includes your hip flexors. So we're going to be talking about those. And I want to mention that because many people say that you don't need core engagement for a handstand, like you can just handstand without core engagement. In my humble opinion, that is absolutely false. And also, if you want to take your calisthenics skills to the next level, then having a strong core, it is super critical. However, the planche and front lever, for example, they are 70 to 80% scapula activation, so your lats and also your serratus, which is part of your core, but they are mostly upper body strength, and the core is an additional component. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't train your core or you shouldn't stabilize your core to take your calisthenics skills to the next level. With that out of the way, the second disclaimer is that these are my top 5 exercises that if I had to pick only 5 exercises, this would be it. I'm gonna give you modifications as always to all the exercises and some variations. So it might end up like 10 to 12 exercises, but I also got another 5 exercises and many more core exercises that are amazing for calisthenics skills. But I just don't wanna see in the comments, why, Gabo, why didn't you include an L-sit? Why didn't you include an ab rollout? If you guys want a part 2 of this video, please let me know. And also I wanna know what is your favorite core exercise, whether it's for calisthenics skill or for training in general. With that being said, we're gonna begin with the first exercise. It's gonna be very, very underrated exercise, very beginner exercise, I think, as they call it. But we're gonna be doing some modifications to make it transferable, especially to the planche mostly, and for other calisthenics skill, but mostly for the planche, and to make it harder to a complete new level. And that is going to be the simple elbow plank. So the elbow plank, as we know it, it is this movement right here. Us calisthenics athletes, we like to protract and depress, which is critical. This is the scapula positions of a planche. And we also like to hold our body a little bit, and we like to posterior pelvic tilt. So we are doing planche right in a way, plank, but I'm gonna give you another couple modifications to make it more transferable to the planche specifically. So the elbow plank, before we get into that, it's an anti-extension exercise, meaning that this is spinal extension. What the plank does is stability in that you are flexing your spine, so your spine doesn't go into anti-extension. This applies for the planche, for the front lever, even for just doing pull-ups. If you have never done planks and you think that they are a waste of time, do it. Guarantee that if you do it at the end of your workout, maybe once a week, if you are not too much into calisthenics skills, it's going to transform your training and your stability and your body awareness, especially in your mixed section like never before. This modification as well, and just simply protracting your scapula, also engages your serratus, which is one of the main muscles that we use in the planche for that protraction action. And keeping that depression, activating the serratus and the lats for stability is what is going to give you a good solid planche. Before we get into the modifications, is about the spinal flexion that I mentioned, that we posteriorly tilt, and we also hollow up a little bit right here. That engages a little bit on the upper abdominals, and I want you guys to do a little hollow, but I don't want you to confuse protraction with the spinal flexion. Like, this is what wouldn't we like to see. Nothing wrong with this. There is a place for this exercise, but what I want to see is a neutral spine. Neutral spine with protraction, not with retraction. So you protract, you depress, you keep a neutral spine, and the most important part here, posteriorly tilt as much as you possibly can and keep the activation on your core super strong. The last modification I'm gonna give you is do it in plantar flex, so point your toes and bring your heels together, so you're squeezing your legs together, your quads are engaged, your glutes are engaged, your core is engaged, everything, you are pushing the ground as hard as you possibly can. A small flexion, but not right here, so create a neutral spine in a sense, and just engage as much as you possibly can. When you begin to see your core loosen up. When you begin to elevate because your lats cannot handle anymore, when you begin to retract, I want you guys to stop the hold. I'm sweating, even though we're in Miami, but I'm just sweating for that. And if you guys wanna know kind of my numbers, I go for 45 seconds and I'm already dying. I will begin obviously with 20, 30 seconds, but with maximum activation, that the moment that you begin to lose that activation, then you stop the hold. I would highly recommend that you begin on your knees to really feel this new plank if you've never done it before. And even if you've done all the cues that I mentioned, you can always squeeze harder when we're working on stability, especially for those skills. You wanna go to the maximum contraction that you can possibly hold to make your body understand that position, to make your body adapt to that position. That doesn't mean that you are always gonna be squeezing your core in a handstand like crazy, but once you teach your body to be super engaged, then you can be relaxed and then your core is going to be engaged. A couple things about the core before I show you the variation on the knees is this one you can practice standing, is you wanna first your rectus abdominals, that's the most common one that we have, which is your 6-pack or 8-pack abs. But then I want you guys to activate your obliques. So basically you suck your belly and you feel the activation on your side body. It would be good also to touch your core to see if this is engaged, because I can activate this without activating my obliques. The last part would be your transverse abdominal. Suck your belly in and you feel like a belt surrounding your entire spine to protect the lumbar spine and to create more stability. With that, you posteriorly tilt to really activate those glutes, basically a full contraction. At the beginning, it might not feel that much of a contraction, but as you do this exercise, you're gonna begin feeling different parts of your core. At the beginning, you might only focus on the scapula because this is a double fold exercise. You're working on scapula stability as well as core stability. It's an amazing exercise to do regularly, even if you're an advanced practitioner. So maybe at the beginning you only focus on your scapula or only focus on your core, and as you begin to get comfortable to the position and you begin to open new body awareness sensations, you begin to focus on the legs at the same time that you're focusing on the core, and you begin to feel your entire body as one piece, as one stick. Lastly, before we move on to the second exercise, which this core activations applies to all the core exercises that we're going to be doing. Really feel that activation. Now, on your knees, nothing wrong with doing it on your knees to really feel posterior pelvic tilt, protract, deep press, and engage that core. And as you begin getting more advanced, you can bring your knees down and then get into the full position. I would recommend that you choose a progression that you can hold for at least 15 seconds to 20 seconds and build it up to the point that you can do even 60-second holds, and then you begin reducing the resting time. Again, stick to the end of the video. I'm gonna give you some modifications into how to apply all the exercises to your level. Elbow plank, very underrated exercise, another exercise that we do kind of wrong sometimes, or not wrong, but we don't do it for the purpose that we're trying to achieve, which is if you're working towards a planche, you wanna make every exercise, or most of the exercises, directed towards that. The elbow plank with this variation is gonna be a game changer if you already have a planche or if you are working towards a planche. I'll see you in the next one. All right, fam, we continue with a very common exercise as well. We're gonna be building up into more harder exercises. This one is going to be the hollow body hold. Another, in my opinion, very underrated and underused exercise for handstands particularly, but also for front lever and for planche, especially for front lever. But simply, it's the same principle of anti-extension. We don't want our core to extend. We want to keep that flexion in order to keep a neutral spine. Like, we don't want a front lever like this, but we work on this in order to our body gravity do its work, and we keep that activation on a neutral spine. Let's get to some modifications and some proper applications, especially for calisthenics skills. So hollow body hold, let me demonstrate first the exercise. Remember, you have that gap, you close that gap, posterior pelvic tilt, engage everything up, and then you adjust your neck because we tend to be like right here crunching up. So adjust your neck and that's it. A little tip, you can push your serratus out. That will just work on just mind muscle connection to really get that serratus, which is critical for most, if not all, calisthenics skills and movements. So the hollow body hold, we keep a posterior pelvic tilt, we squeeze those legs together as much as we can, we point our toes. Like, I see people, no, I can hold the hollow body hold for a minute and 30 seconds, and they're literally like right here. Or maybe they touch down, like I can close the gap, I'm closing the gap, but there's a difference between closing the gap and full posterior pelvic tilt activation. So how I would encourage you to begin understanding this exercise, even if you have done it in the past, is in a tuck position. You can leave your hands on the floor, or you can keep your hands right here. I'm just gonna keep it overhead so you guys can see what I'm really talking about. You're gonna bring your legs into a 90-degree angle. You still have that gap. Now, as I said, I can close that gap. My core is engaged, especially the upper region of my core, but I haven't really truly fully posterior pelvic tilt, and that's going to raise my hips to this extent. So basically you're doing like a little crunch, and that's the position that I wanna do. And if then you raise your arms and your upper core and your entire core is engaged, then you can try to extend your legs, keeping that activation. What most likely is going to happen is that you have full activation here because it's easier, and as you begin going there, your body is going to begin to open up. Because I used to coach this exercise as if you cannot put your hand beneath, then you're doing it right, but I was missing the point of full contraction in the position. So if you feel like the elongated position, you cannot truly feel your abdominals, and by feeling, again, I don't mean your rectus abdominals, I mean that you can really push your transverse abdominal in and really feel that course effect of your entire core. They're redundant. Also, a good tip would be to, once you get into the position, touch your obliques, which is the second activation that I mentioned here, because I can have my rectus abdominal activated, but this one can be loose. As soon as I push everything in, then your entire internal and external obliques are going to be engaged, your glutes are engaged, your quads are engaged, you're pointing your toes, you're compressing everything up, and also I don't want a pike in your hips. When full hip extension, full hip extension will be this, so a slight hip extension, you're feeling the stretch on your hip flexors, and you are putting your core there. Now, this is one modification. Then you can also bring your hands right here forward, whichever of those three. So I will begin with the tuck, then I would move on to having my hands forward with my legs extended, and then I would work on the full position. Whichever position that you can hold for at least 20 seconds, 15 to 20 seconds at the beginning, it might be hard, with full contraction. Like as soon as you begin, I don't feel my core or it's beginning to slip in and it just opens up a little bit, literally stop the whole. You can do to failure and maybe 5 more seconds on the last set, but the most amount of work on the most amount of time that you are spending in the position is with full contraction. Last one, if you're a little bit more advanced and you want to step it up a little bit, you can play around with hollow body rocks. So you keep the position and you maybe pike out the hips a little bit to get some momentum, and then you rock without changing the shape of the movement. This is just a little extra challenge if you can hold the full hollow body hold for, I would recommend to build it to the point that you can do 60-second hold, 30-second rest, 60-second hold. That's a very elite advanced level for a full contraction, but that's what I would like you guys to work towards it if you're truly serious about the planche and the front lever specifically. I think I covered that all. I'll see you on the next one. All right, guys, now we're gonna be going a little bit more dynamic and also a bit more intense. It's going to be dragon flags, of course, popularized by Bruce Lee, and for good reason. It's probably, if I had to choose one of the 5, I think this would be it. Now, I'm gonna give you several modifications for the dragon flag. The dragon flag is especially important for the front lever because it not only works on that anti-extension and keeping that stability in a very dynamic way, but it also engages your lats if you place your arms in the right position. And so front lever, main number 1, but it also will help you for the planche, from handstand, and everything that you need to hold your body as a stick. I'm going to use a Stalder bar or a horizontal bar. It just preferentiate the activation on your lats when you are right here. Now you can use a pole and bring it overhead. That would also activate your lats because your lat is in a stretch position and you're activating it, so it will work as a stability and you will build conditioning. But this exercise is mostly for the frontal cord. But the more that you can involve the lats, the better it is going to be. I'm gonna show it right here, but if you don't have this, you can do the regular dragon flags, grabbing it right here. So, if you have a Stalder bar, try to keep your elbow right on top of your shoulder. Your scapula, you can protract, you can retract, you can be neutral. Simply find a position. Depression is the most important part. Now, nor full protracted, nor full retracted. Simply a position where you can, as soon as you pull the bar, you feel it on your lats. I'm gonna let me show you first the exercise. So full dragon flags. You activate your scapula, activate your lats, then posterior tilt at the beginning. So you are already in that posterior pelvic tilt. You bring your legs into an L shape. You shoot for the sky, and then you lower all the way down, keeping your body straight, and then you pull all the way up. Then come all the way down. Now, that's a tough exercise, and it's super, super easy to compensate. The most common compensation is that as you begin coming up, you begin piking at the hips. Let me actually demonstrate that so you can record yourself and avoid that mistake. So let's say that you're here, you're coming down, and then you're super tired, and then you bring it up like this. No, full hip extension without arching, but hip extension and posterior pelvic tilt. So this exercise will teach you, like most of the ones that we've been doing, posterior pelvic tilt, scooping your sit bones under, really activating the lower core while extending your legs and creating a 180-degree angle between your torso and your quadriceps, basically full open hips. Modifications for this one, again, record yourself and do not choose a progression that you are compensating like crazy. There is no point about it. Try to go for a progression that you can do for 6 to 10 reps. If you cannot do those reps even on the easiest progression, I would highly encourage you to move on to the hollow body hold. And as you do hollow body hold and as you do pull-ups, those two together, you're gonna grab the bar and you're gonna be doing dragon flags like nothing. Do not rush to try to do an exercise when your body's not ready for it. If you're struggling with hollow body hold like way too much and you can hold it for 5 seconds, do not expect to get even a advanced tuck dragon flag, because it won't be as effective. You're gonna be doing like only 2 to 3 reps. So be patient with this one and only come when you're able. Now, the easiest modification is going to be negative of all the progressions that I'm going to list. So begin with negative if you cannot go into the positive motion. So for the negative, you would shoot up in the same motion. You would simply control that negative as slow as you can. The next one would be decreasing the lever. So in calisthenics, we have gravity. The shorter that your body is, the closer your legs are, or the more forward your hands are, basically the more compressed you are, the easier it's going to be. You can imagine a tuck front lever or a full front lever. So the easiest one right here, aside from the hollow body hold, I really want you guys to get good with the hollow body hold before jumping into dragon flags, would be the full tuck. Now, what I want you to do is begin in the same motion so you get really used to that hip extension in the top, and then you full tuck, and then you come down. Now, on the tuck, it's very easy to create full spinal flexion. I don't want you guys to be here. Really try to be as neutral as possible with your tuck knees in, and then lower down, up, and down. More or harder, you'll be into a 90-degree angle, basically advanced tuck. You go up in the same way, 90-degree angle. Keep that 90-degree angle, lower down, body's straight, not compensating anywhere, and then put yourself up. After you get the tuck, we got 2 more progressions now from the advanced tuck to the 2 progressions that I'm gonna mention. There's a very big gap. That's why if you combine pull-ups with a progression that you can do here with hollow body holds, you might be able to increase to the next progression. And also you can incorporate negative of that more advanced progression. Again, I don't want you guys to be doing 2 to 3 reps. I want you guys to at least do 4 to 6 reps. And ideally getting to a point that you will do 10 reps of a particular progression for 3 sets before moving on. But more on the exercise, the other variation is going to be half lay and straddle. So half lay, you come up in the same way, you bend or flex from the knees. Now hip extension, posterior pelvic tilt, everything's locked. Come all the way down, you touch with your toes, and you pull. And then you pull up. That's also a great variation because it's the only one from the easiest one that you're creating hip extension and you're not in a flex position. So if you suffer from like an anterior pelvic tilt or something, getting both actions of posterior to anterior pelvis and opening the hips is actually what you want. But again, do not rush to this position. The advanced tuck and even the tuck and even the negative on advanced tuck will do magic and wonders for your level if that's your progression. Then we go into straddle. Basically open legs, go up, open the legs. Now, in the straddle, the more you open, it's gonna come to a point that you need to pike, you need to arch your lumbar spine. So do not go into full straddle, go into semi-straddle, then come down, and then come up. Also a lot of dragon flags for me today. One of the best, if not the best, exercise that you can do for calisthenics skills. I would highly encourage you to do it either at the end of your workout. Now, if you're new to this exercise, place it at the beginning or in your pulling session. Let's say you're doing pull-ups. After pull-ups, you do it, because I found that for many beginners that are just starting out, they begin doing dragon flags. They do it at the end. They're exhausted and they cannot get a couple reps. They get frustrated because no, it's a core exercise, so it should be in the end. Not really. This is a core and a pull exercise. So place it accordingly on your routine. Work with a progression that you can manage and enjoy the gains. I'll see you in the next one. All right, family, the next one is going to be more on the lower body, so not so much on the core. However, we need to stabilize the core in order to move our lower limbs in a movement that it's congruent with the front lever and the planche. So what we're talking about here is reverse hyperextensions, which basically means an exercise that allows us to keep a posterior pelvic tilt and create hip extension without lumbar extension. We want our hips fully open. What creates hip extension, or the main muscle that creates hip extensions, is going to be your gluteus, your glutes. So you want to keep a posterior pelvic tilt throughout the entire movement while we work on that hip extension. Let me do one demonstration and then we'll go through the variations, modifications, and application of the exercise. So for you guys that are not familiar with it, it's going to be this motion right here. So here my hamstrings are engaged, my glutes are engaged, and I'm not arching with my lumbar spine. I'm actually keeping a mindful contraction on the front core. Something that I like to do is simply putting a stick or something very small that allow you to create that whole body shape on the lower abs as you move into hip extension. Choose a progression. I'm gonna give you from the easiest one to the hardest one, that you can really feel your posterior chain activating, your lower posterior chain, because most of us are very weak in that area. And for the planche, was a misconception a long time ago. I don't think it's still here that you need low back strength or stability to hold the planche. I mean, you might use the lower back as a stability, but it's not the primary muscle that lifts your legs. It's going to be your glutes and your hamstrings, because you don't want to arch your back. You want to keep a whole body shape as your legs extend, whether that is a planche, whether that is a front lever, whether that is a handstand. So for all of them, posterior pelvic tilt, hip extension. So with that in mind, let's go to the easiest variation that I would go. You can do this on a bench, on a box, or anything, any place that you like. The easiest one would be going from tuck to a straddle position. Now, it's easier in terms of strength and lever, but it might be harder in terms of feeling your body. Straddle position is not as easy as most people think, because you need that mobility on your hip flexors and also on your inner abductors. So no full straddle, so we can keep that posterior pelvic tilt and fully open our hips, but a small straddle from tuck position. So you begin in tuck, posteriorly tilt, so create that whole body shape. Then from here, extend, come down, extend, come down. You want to keep a tempo. I don't want to get too fancy into tempo. Simply hold the contraction, the isometric contraction at the top for at least 1, ideally 2, better 3 seconds. Hold that, reverse, go, hold, and reverse. That is tuck to straddle. Then we can go into tuck to full. Simply find the best one that you feel the most, because some might be harder, some might be easier for different people and for different mobility deficiencies or issues that we have. So from here, tuck, full, tuck, full. Those are 2 variations that we go from tuck to either straddle. If you're working towards the straddle planche, even though you can do the full, for example, if you're working towards the straddle planche and you want to learn how to raise those legs, keeping that whole body shape, then work on the straddle. If you're working on the full planche, then work on full. And the other two variations will be going from the bottom into a straddle or from the bottom into a full, whichever progression that you choose. This one is a little bit harder to feel, and it is easier to cheat and get our lower back involved. But again, if you're getting into a planche, you can imagine that you go from tuck to full. That will be going from tuck to full right here. Or if you are leaning into a planche and you raise your legs, that will be the progression that I'm going to show you here. So imagine you are right here. Let's begin on straddle. Point your toes, posteriorly tilt your pelvis, and only using your glutes and your hamstrings, you raise up and you engage. Down, up, and engage. Same for the full, posteriorly tilt, raise and engage. Raise and engage. So there you have it. If you had to choose one lower body exercise for calisthenics skills, which most people that really focus on calisthenics skills, they don't train legs, which is, it can be bad because we need this mobility to be, at least to be straight and to have a good, decent planche and not be piking on our hips. This will be the exercise to go for either on your lower body days and your leg days, or at the end of your planche session or your front lever session. Build it up to a point that you can do 6 to 12 reps, then increase the progression. 3 to 4 sets is always good. I'll see you on the next one. All right, family, now we enter into a kind of a different category. So the first 3 was very anterior stability focus. The one before was very posterior chain focus, especially on the lower body, which is where we needed on calisthenics skills. Now we're going to break that up. This is an anterior focus exercise, but it's also a hip flexor dominant exercise. It is also the only, I believe, exercise where, besides the reverse upper extensions, where we are breaking at the hips. Obviously, depending on the progressions that you choose. But the goal here, it is, by the way, toes to bar, and it's a different category because now we're working on compression strength and core compression. And you don't need this for the front lever, you don't need it for the planche, you don't need it for the human flag, you don't need it for the muscle up, maybe for the muscle up, for the kick up, but you do need it for handstand presses, especially straight arm presses, Staller press, pike press, and for the visit, basically getting our ability to get our legs to touch our chest. Not only that, but our ability to use our hip flexors to raise our legs. Toes to bar has been my go-to exercise, core exercise at the end of most of my calisthenics sessions. I don't do it that much currently because I got pretty strong with it. It's a pretty advanced exercise. It's also an exercise that we do a lot of compensations, especially either weak people that has weak hip flexors or super strong people that has super strong lats and lack of shoulder flexion. So I would encourage you, and also lack of hamstring flexibility. For this exercise, when you're resting, work on stretching your hamstrings. That's first number 1, and work on opening the shoulders. That's point number 2, because I'm gonna show the exercise, you're gonna see the amount of hamstring flexibility or hip flexor strength, the antagonist that you need, or shoulder mobility that you need. So those two are variation that I would like all of you guys to get to this position. It is basically raising your legs, and instead of using your lats, so my shoulders stay open, and I'm using my hip flexors and obviously the lower core. Now, that's a very tough exercise for people that do not have the mobility. If you have the mobility, you can do 10, 12 of those without no problem. Your toes to bar, if you are a calisthenics athlete and you don't have fully open shoulders, or you don't have that compression strength, hamstring flexibility, it might look like this. Nothing wrong with this. Here, you go here, you go here, and you touch. So you see my shoulders are closed, I'm engaging my lats, I'm building some additional strength for my front lever, but I would like you guys to build it up to this point. Now, nothing wrong with those compensations as long as you are working on your weak areas to get it to the full position. If you want the press to handstand, if you want the visit, this is what you should work towards it. Now, if you're working towards the front lever and you just want some core engagement, using your lats in this movement won't harm you at all. So work towards that, opening the shoulders and hamstring flexibility and doing those repetitions. This is an advanced exercise for most people, so to begin, to start out, simply go for leg raises. So here, leg raises. Try to do it hip dominant, meaning that you don't flex that much from your lower core, but you only bring your legs up and you use your hip flexor. As you start, maybe get a little bit higher or even go higher flexing from your spine, but tuck position. You can also work on negatives. We'll go here, extend, and then come down. Choose whichever progression, and if you are new to compression strength, I would get really comfortable with an L-sit first, regular L-sit or hanging L-sit. But again, that will be for an entirely different video. If you want, you guys have requested it, but if you want a core compression specific video, I can give you my top 5 exercises for that, or I can give you a full-on routine, whichever you guys request. Leave it in the comment section down below. But toes to bar, arguably one of my favorite exercises for those type of skills, more mobility dominant skills. Mobility dominant, if you want to check our video, how to train for calisthenics skills, which are explained those different, you can check it up right here. With that being said, I think I covered it all. We have some ways to get towards this position, but I will just leave it as doing L-sit and tuck raises. As your body becomes stronger, you're also gaining grip strength with your front lever, as well as your muscle ups and anything that requires grip. So it's a win, 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 win. With that being said, guys, that's it. I'll see you on the next time. All right, family, so there you have it. Those are my top 5 exercises, core exercises that I would highly encourage you to incorporate them, whichever progression that you feel comfortable doing. Every single week, maybe pick and choose and begin building your way up to it. But if you're training for calisthenics skills and you're doing core work, and if you're not doing these 5, it's not, I wouldn't say wrong, because there are other exercises that can complement that, but I highly encourage you to give this one a try for a couple of weeks, and you're going to see massive, massive improvements in all the calisthenics skills or all the calisthenics skills that you are training.